Perfect. Go live. Awesome. All right, cool. So we're back. Hey, everybody. All right. Hey, Cassidy. Hello. Let me type it in actually. So study group. Study group. Group hour. Hour. No readings. All right. There we go. Pin comment. Perfect. All right. Study group hour. No readings. Perfect. All right. So welcome to study group, guys. So for those of you who have been following along, you already know what we do. For those of you who haven't been following along or you're new to study group, this is our study group hour, which basically means that we read from a book or we discuss spiritual topics, or I share my perception or my ideas or my thoughts or I give commentary about the book or the material that we're reading. So all questions in this hour have to pertain to either the material we're reading, topics that have to do with the material, or spiritual topical questions. No personal readings or personal questions. That was in the last hour, so just FYI. Okay. All right. So I'm going to get started here, and y'all can go ahead and start putting your spiritual questions or your topical questions below if you have any. So the last time we left off was on page 71 of The Secret, and so I'm going to start where it left off. A lot of people feel stuck or a lot of people feel stuck or imprisoned or confined by their current circumstances. Whatever your circumstances right now, that is only your current reality. And current reality will begin to change as a result of beginning to use the secret. The secret being the law of attraction. Your current reality or your current life as a result of the thoughts is a result of the thoughts you have been thinking. All of that will totally change as you begin to change your thoughts and your feelings. That a man can change himself and master his own destiny is the conclusion of every mind who is wide awake to the power of right thought. When you want to change your circumstances, you must first change your thinking. Every time you think inside your mail expecting to see a bill, every time you look inside your mail expecting to see a bill, guess what? It'll be there. Each day you go out dreading the bill. You're never expecting anything great. You're thinking debt, you're expecting debt. So debt must show up so you won't think you're crazy. And every day you confirm your thought. Is debt going to be there? Yes, debt is there. Is debt going to be there? Yes, debt there. Is debt going to be there? Yes, debt's there. Why? Because you expected debt to be there. So it showed up because the law of attraction is always being obedient to your thoughts. Do yourself a favor, expect a check. So I'll stop there because I want to comment about that. If you do that, here's the thing, and this is something that you can apply to every area of your life. So we have a tendency of being obsessive in our thinking about the things we fear, the things we want to change. So if we have an issue with weight, then our thoughts are going to be obsessively about our weight. And anything and everything that we do is probably going to either it's going to amplify our sensitivity to our own weight, or it's going to be in an attempt to fight back against our own weight, but it's still an obsessive thinking pattern about weight. Same thing with finances, same thing with relationships, and same thing with mail and debt or emails that have to do with money that you owe. Here's what I would say, because and everybody can get into this habit and get into this trap where you become obsessive, or you start to repeatedly think about something that you don't really want to deal with, or you are worried about, or you're concerned about. What has helped me and what I've done to get around this is I acknowledge what I feel first and say, look, this is how I feel, and I just worry about it. And so I just acknowledge what I feel. I don't ignore myself. I don't get after myself. I just acknowledge what I feel. This is what I worry, or this is what I'm afraid of, or this is what I'm thinking about. And then once I acknowledge it, then I say, okay, well, enough time. I gave myself like a few seconds to think about that. Now I need to get over it, or just focus on something else. And that is where you want to use your pivot, your reroute. In other words, if you are focused on a bill, then do something that makes you feel better about bills. In other words, what I would recommend, or what I would suggest, is if you are paying for something that you shouldn't be paying for, or that you can have the opportunity to bring down in a cost or price, then go and do that in that moment. So you feel what you feel, you acknowledge it and say, okay, enough of that. What can I do to make this better or make myself feel better? And then go and try to change a situation with an existing expense, or go and try to budget and get a budget app, or go and write down all of your expenses and then work it out so that way you can look at what you need to cut and what you need to remove. But if you can do anything in an action way to follow through with resolving the issue, that's the first thing you should do, just because it makes common sense and that's just practical, like duh. Like if you have bills and you can't afford them, then reduce your bills. So that's the practical. It's going to make you feel better when you have control over your bills. Second part of that is if you just bring something out, or you reduce a bill, or you get rid of the Netflix membership for a month or two or whatever, then after that, then go and do an activity or focus on something that makes you feel better. So go and take a walk. It might make you feel better. Go and work on something creative. It might make you feel better. Go and bake something. It might make you feel better. Go and watch a show or a movie that's funny, or that can get you drawn in so much that you stop obsessively thinking and you can forget what you were thinking about. But just pivot, because if you can get really good at pivoting, of course, acknowledging what the issue is, doing something to resolve it if you can, or whatever is within your power, even if it's one small step, and then pivot. All those three simultaneously is going to start to condition you to just get into the habit of knowing, first off, that you can deal with anything, and so anything that's thrown at you, or anything that you have to deal with, you're going to have a way of coping with it or dealing with it in a constructive way. And so that just gives you a sense of like, I've got some sort of control over this. So that's just to give you a sense of that. And then you distract yourself, because once you distract yourself, you did it right after you started to feel a little bit better. And that's where we're trying to get to, is that's the energy shift, is feeling a little bit better about the issue or about the situation, and then pivot to distract yourself with something else, so you don't sit there and go back into your obsessive thinking. So for example, for myself, like whenever I'm dealing with tax stuff, because tax can be a very stressful thing, what I tend to do is, if I'm like not sure about something, I'm like, okay, I'm not sure, whatever. So for example, this year, even though all of my tax stuff is handled and it's dealt with, I have payroll that deals with it. I have a lot of things in place that deal with my taxes for me, so I don't have to deal with it. But inevitably, sometimes every year, the calculation may be slightly off, or something might not have been deductible, or maybe there was a law change in that year. So then I may end up having to pay more than I expected. So like last year, I paid my taxes all year. It was deducted every single time I paid myself, or I gave myself a paycheck, because I give myself a paycheck through payroll and all that stuff. But with all the calculations, at the end of the year, I still owed $1,500, and I'm like, God damn it! And I was trying not to owe money. I was trying to get money back. I want money back. I don't want to have to pay money towards this. So I ended up having to pay $1,500. But I was like, okay, but I had money. I had saved money, or had some money in reserve specifically for taxes, just because the IRS is not going to play around with you. They're going to come for their money. And so I did that. Was fine. Done. This year, same thing. I don't know if I'm gonna have to pay for some things or not, and there are some things I had to make changes with this year with taxes, because it just wasn't gonna be able to be done the way it was done last year. So okay, well, let's try this approach and see if this is gonna work better. But I have a buffer, so if something goes wrong, I can cover my own ass. And if worst case scenario, I can't cover my own ass, then I need to work out a payment plan with the IRS. That's pretty much what it is. But it is what it is. But in my head, instead of sitting there, what about, no, because that's going to make me sick, that's going to make me crazy, and that's only going to start to create the energy and the state of being of summoning to me unexpected like sums of bills that I wasn't expecting. So I don't give myself enough time to sit there and ponder. I'm like, okay, I tell myself, this is what I did to deal with that, or to offset that, or whatever. So if it happens, or I got to deal with that again, so be it. And then that's it. And then I pivot and then focus on something else, and I distract myself. And that has been a godsend to operate that way, because a lot of the issues that I had in the past, I've been able to rectify, resolve, or completely do away with because of operating that way. And so it wasn't about thinking only positive. I didn't think only positive. It wasn't about only have a perfect thought, like they say in the book. I don't have perfect thoughts. It wasn't about think of a check in the mail. Well, I'm not there yet. I'm getting there. And for me, money coming out of nowhere, or people throwing money at me, it's a little bit of a challenge there, because I don't like taking people's money unless I have something of value to offer them. So that's why, I'm very specific about how I service, how my business is service, how the service is set up and everything. And so people throwing money at me or giving me money, it's just like, so there's a level of there's a level of, I don't know if I deserve it, or there's still some of that there because, again, remember, I grew up in the hood. I grew up in poverty. I grew up on food stamps with my mom. So I grew up on nothing and having nothing. So for people, and I grew up with a mindset that you don't wait around for people to hand money out to you. You need to work your ass off, bust your ass off for that dollar. And so I grew up with that mentality. And in some instances, I think it's appropriate to have that mindset. If you want to have a business, bust your ass. If you want to have this or that, then you need to bust your ass for it because you're going to need to put in the energy and the effort. However, when it comes to receiving benefit financially, when receiving money from the universe, you have to get comfortable with receiving money from the universe. And guess what? People are the universe. So you have to, but this is where it gets tricky because you can take this and go in a positive direction, or you can take this and go in a negative direction. Here's an example of this. So I've done stuff for people for free that I don't tell them you don't owe me anything, whatever. But I make it possible for people if they want to tip me or they want to, thank me with money, whatever. It's up to them. I didn't ask for it. It's just there because people, usually when I do lives or whatever, there have been people who have reached out and says, I need to pay you something for this. And I'm like, no, it's nothing. And I told people, no, I don't want it. But it keeps being something. So I'm like, look, this is a tip thing. If you want to tip me $5, so be it. You can go and you can donate to a volunteer or a charity thing. I'm fine with that too. It's whatever. But here it is, there. Now that's it. But for me, it's like I still haven't got to a point where I'm willing to take a large amount of money just because someone wants to give it to me. Unless it's like my sister and she's giving me a bunch of money, or a family member and they just want to give me money. It's fine. Give me the money. I'm fine. I'll take your money. But if it's like a random stranger or someone or just a random thing, that's not something that I've always been comfortable with. And this is why the way my business is set up, everything is automated through my website, because I don't like talking about exchanging money. I don't like asking for money. I don't like telling people the price of something. I'm like, look, these are my services. This is the price. If you want it, book it, pay for your appointment, and then we can just deal with the service part of it. I don't even have to worry about or think about dealing with the financial part of it. So that's why I have it set up that way. And that's for me because I personally also came through a period where people in the spiritual community, if you are really gifted or if you're real, you shouldn't charge for it. I'm like, well, yeah, your grandmother was supported by her husband who worked a full-time job, and she just sat her ass at home and was bored. So she had the opportunity to read for people for free. Of course she didn't have to charge anybody. Of course she's going to tell you if you really are gifted or have it that you shouldn't charge for it. No, people in this industry need to charge for their services because they are putting the energy and effort, and they have bills to pay for, food to have to eat, and they have to support themselves. So that's bullshit. And that's someone who just wants to get on. You have no idea how many people have approached me and said, if you're real, then you would be doing this for free. And then they ask me for a free reading. It's always the approach of the technique. They're trying to make you feel guilty. Then they're trying to pressure you into getting something from you for free because they don't want to pay. And so you just don't even buy into it because it happens a lot, especially with this industry. But so I've gotten comfortable with being paid for my services. But I also do a lot of free things as well that I don't advertise. Now, there's a lot of stuff I do for free that I do advertise because I want to inspire people to do the same thing. But there's also things I do that I don't tell the people that I'm doing. There are people that I've helped that I don't tell, that I don't talk about, just because I don't need to talk about every good thing that I do in this world. This is just who I am. But the idea of receiving something for free, that's still something I'm working for and getting comfortable with. But it's happened, and it's happening more and more and more the more comfortable I get with it. And I've already shared with you guys the free stuff that comes in the mail that I'm like, where did this come from? Like, how did this, I was thinking I needed something and then it shows up in the mail. So I'm getting used to it and getting comfortable with it, and I'm letting myself get more and more acclimated to that potential and that blessing. And in my mind, if I ever received, like, let's say someone says, hey, here you go. I'm dying tomorrow. Here's a check for $100,000. Okay, I'm not going to go and like run amok and be stupid with that. I would actually create a nonprofit because I already have that all worked out in my head of what I would want to do to use that to give back or to help people with it. So in my mind, if I receive money in large amounts, I already intend to use it for certain things that would help other people, because it's not just a blessing for me, it's a blessing for everybody, and I trust myself to help other people. With another person, no, because people are chisty, they're stingy, they're shady, and they'll take that money and they'll go off and try to live their best life on $100,000, which is not a lot of money. For someone who doesn't have it yet, it's a lot of money. But for most people who earn more or who are thinking about $1 million, $100,000 versus $1 million, two different amounts of money. But anyways, so you get comfortable with it. So that's an example of one side of it, where like, okay, I want to do something good with it, or I want it to come in a way where it's going to be within integrity, or I'm gonna honor the path. Then there's another type of receiving where you become an opportunist and you just take, even if you have an opportunity to be a kind or compassionate person, you don't care, because if it's presented, you're just going to take it. In other words, here's an example of this. So one time with my ex, because he was also very, very good manifester, and he really wanted an iPhone. This is when iPhones first came out, like the first or second generation of iPhones. And so he really wanted an iPhone. And so what he would do is he would be scrolling through like a magazine, and then he would see like a magazine, and it had an iPhone, and he would do this or whatever. And every time he would get a new phone, he would try to get a phone that was either similar or that had some sort of features that might be similar to an iPhone, but he pretended as if he had an iPhone, and he kept thinking about that. And that was just the thing that he thought about, but he wanted it, but he pretended like he was having one. And he was even like looking at different versions, the cases, etc. So then fast forward a week or two, and he calls me. He's like, hey, guess what? And I'm like, what? He's like, I got an iPhone. I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I got an iPhone. This is back when we lived together. So I'm like, okay, how did you afford that? Like, where'd the money come from? And he was like, I found it. And I was like, you found it? He's like, yeah. He was like, I was in the lounge at the airport, and there was an iPhone on the ground underneath my seat, and I took it, and now I have an iPhone. And so that there is an indicator of, okay, the universe is going to operate within what your reality bubble is, or with what's normal for you. So if you come from a background, or if you come from a mindset where just taking something that doesn't belong to you and it hasn't been offered to you, but taking it is a norm, then when the universe presents opportunities to you, it's going to present opportunities to take things that don't belong to you, that were not offered to you, because that's a norm. And so it's going to function, the universe, the reality will function within your norm. But for myself, that isn't a norm. I'm not used to going and stealing shit or taking shit. Stuff isn't going to show up for me like that. And so the first thing I did as soon as he told me was, he was like, look, I manifested it. I attracted it. And I'm like, you attracted it, yeah, but you also attracted an opportunity to be a better person, or to be a kinder person. And so I was like, you need to find the owner, or you need to try to find out who this is and give it back. And he was like, no, and like he got mad at me because I was giving him a guilt trip. And I'm like, dude, it's not your phone. Like, you need to find the person this belongs to and give it back. What if you lost your phone? Wouldn't you want someone to return that to you? He says, it's not likely, but you should still try, because that's the difference between you and these folks who just want to take and want to rob others, or want to disempower others and own that as if they have the right to. That's the difference between you and them. And so, yes, the universe gave you the phone and presented it to you because you attracted it in the way that would be realistically possible for you. But it also gave you an opportunity to be a kind, generous, and compassionate person. And you didn't choose to do that. You chose your materialism or your desire for this thing than to express this moment of compassion. And so you need to find the person who, and so didn't work. I couldn't talk him into it. He kept the phone. And so, but that's the thing. That's how, so when you are desiring something, the universe is going to kind of present it in a way where it is within a realm of possibility. And you might have to decide how you want to approach that, or how you want to deal with that. So like some of the stuff that has shown up for me in the mail, I've attempted to try to return it. People, as already know, I attempt to return stuff. I also attempt to just find the people it was supposed to go to mail it to them, or to try to mail it to the company that sent it to me. But when I have trouble doing that, which I've had instances where it just wasn't going to be possible, or I called and said, hey, I got this isn't mine, I didn't order this, I may have shipped this to me accidentally, and they're like, well, you can keep it, we'll send a new one out. Okay, cool. Which is what has happened several times. So that's within the realm of possibility. I tried to do the right thing. I tried to be a good person about it, and the universe said, oh, good for you. Here you go. You can keep it anyways, and we'll send a new one out. And so that's the way to do it. Not, well, there's a vehicle parked out there. I've always wanted that kind of vehicle, and the owner's not around. The keys are in the ignition. I'm going to go and I'm going to take that vehicle. That's not an opportunity to get what you want. That's an opportunity to show the kind of human being you want to be on this planet. And if you make the right decision, you will receive more blessings than that damn vehicle. If you make the wrong decision, that vehicle is going to be the epitome of what you're able to achieve, which is not even something you were able to achieve on your own. You had to go through someone else to take it, and that's not the way to do it, y'all. So that's something that I kind of wanted to explain to y'all. But let me go back to this because we're going around here. So expecting something positive in the mail, or expecting, not worrying so much about the bills and just, okay, this is how I'm going to purchase or whatever. Expectation is a powerful, attractive force because it draws things to you. As Bob Proctor says, desire connects you with the thing desired, and expectation draws it into your life. Expect the things you want and don't expect the things you don't want. What do you expect now? Most people look at their current state of affairs and they say, this is who I am. That's not who you are. That's who you were. Let's say, for instance, that you don't have enough money in your bank account and you don't have the relationship that you want, or your health and fitness aren't up to par. That's not who you are. That's the residual outcome of your past thoughts and actions. So we're constantly living in this residual, if you will, of the thoughts and actions we've taken in the past. When you look at your current state of affairs and define yourself by that, then you doom yourself to have nothing more than the same in the future. All that we are is a result of what we have thought. And a good time frame for this, because people may not know what's a good time to be able to grade this, 30 to 90 days. So if you're thinking about something today, you can expect the energy to start to accumulate. It's kind of like medication. There's some medications you can't really take to expect a change in that day or in that moment. Sometimes you have to take a medication and it takes 2 weeks or a month before it actually starts to build in. Same thing with law of attraction and with energy. You have to kind of keep applying the same type of energy so that it can start to accumulate and turn into a trend versus just a one-time thing. If you just try to do law of attraction work or try to manifest something as a one-time thing, don't expect it, just because it's not enough of an effort and it's not enough of an intention. Now, there's some things that may come immediately or right away because they're not really, you don't have a strong emotional attachment to those versus the things you just desire. Those things may come easily, but other things that you're more emotionally attached to or that you are desperate for are going to take a lot longer to manifest, just because you have to work through some of that. But 30 to 90 days is a good amount of time. So if I'm having a bad day, then I can expect to see the response to that from the universe, or I can expect to get that back within a 30 to 90 day period. And so then the next day I do the same thing, the next day I do the same thing. Guess what? You're going to start to have a lot of days where they're just shitty. And because you're going to have a lot of shitty days, guess what? You're going to get comfortable with that being life and being the norm and being the trend. And guess what? When you start getting comfortable with that being the norm, the trend, then you're just going to basically assume that you have a shitty life and you're cursed or something is out to get you. But it's not that. It's because it's accumulated over time and you're basically building into it. So if you want to reverse that, or if you want to undo that, you have to apply a new version of yourself. You have to consistently be a new version of yourself, a new state of being, practice a new state of being, practice new processes, mental processes, new thought patterns, because then that's going to start to accumulate and then you'll start to see that shifting within a 30 to 90 day. So that's why I say to people, you have to do something consistently with this, or it's just a no-go. It's a no-go. If you want to change your circumstances, you must first change your thinking. Every time you look inside your mail expecting, oh, she already said that. Yeah, every time you say mail, guess what? It'll be there. She already said that. Oh, where am I at? Oh, there we go. I'm like lost in my book. I would like to share a process with you that came from the great teacher Neville Goddard in a lecture he delivered in 1954, entitled The Pruning Shears of Revision. This process has had a profound effect on my life. Neville recommends at the end of every day before you go to sleep to think through the events of the day. If any events or moments did not go the way you wanted them to, replay them in your mind in a way that thrills you. As you recreate those events in your mind exactly as you want, you are cleaning up your frequency from the day, and you are emitting a new signal and frequency for tomorrow. You have intentionally created new pictures for your future. It is never too late to change the pictures. Okay, so I'm going to use an example for this because we have a perfect example of this, where if you are living your life or you're dealing with certain instances or moments or circumstances and you don't really want that to be the case, or you don't choose to believe that, or you don't choose to manifest in that way, or you don't want your life to, you don't want to feel the energy, or you don't want to feel that, and instead you choose to think of it differently. And I'm going to stay out of politics here, but I need to use an example. A really, really observable practitioner of this is Donald Trump. Because, and this is something that I've seen in him throughout the entire time of his life, where if he doesn't like how something is going, or he doesn't, and I know people who hate him, and that's fine. I'm just using it as an example so you understand what I'm saying here. When something is going a certain way, or something is happening in a way where you don't choose to accept, then you choose to think a different thought about it. And then that thought will start to become your reality. And so that is a trend that I've noticed with him, and he's been very good at doing that, which is why people are like, why doesn't he have to, deal with the ramifications of this or that? Why doesn't he have to be responsible for this or that? This is why, because he's living in a bubble that he has produced for himself, where he is basically reinventing, or he's recreating the past or the present in a way where he chooses to see it the way he wants to see it versus what is actually taking place, or what a lot of other people are observing. And so that's an example of how that works. The thing about that, and here's the issue that you run into, because this is something that I've run into myself, and I've done this myself, so I know what this looks like. If you create a version of those events in your head that you prefer, or if you produce a reality in your head that is not reflective of the events or the actual situation, one of two things will happen. Either the life or the world around you is going to shift enough to support that state of being, which is what we've seen happen with Donald, or, and this is what tends to happen, if you go too far into a reality, or if you go too far into a thought process, or into a chosen perspective, and the perspective is starting to infringe on the rights, or on when you start to infringe on God's territory, at that point you're going to run into some problems, because we are all God informed, all of us. Doesn't matter who you are, what you believe, doesn't matter. We're all God informed, and we all have the ability to produce a reality, to create a reality with our state of mind, with our chosen state of being. And you can have that reality, and you can live in a very separate state of reality from everybody else. But when you start to formulate a reality that takes too many factors, too many pieces, too many energies of others and of the world and of people, when you start to infringe on the jurisdiction of God, because we're only versions of the divine, we're only aspects of the divine. When we try to pretend like we're God, or we try to pretend like we are everything, we are beginning to infringe on the level of God, on the level of source, on the level of the reality, the core reality, the root reality that we are all a part of, whether we are one way or another, doesn't matter. We are all human, we all exist in a physical reality, and we're all based in certain laws of physics. We are all based in certain experiences, certain things that are just a norm on this reality. So if you're creating a sub-reality, and that sub-reality begins to infringe on the jurisdiction of the God reality, which is the source, everything. And Donald Trump isn't God. He is an aspect of the divine, as we all are. But once you start to infringe, then you get this, you get a reality check from the universe. You get a slap back. You get an immediate whack. You're infringing on my territory, and you need to know your place in all of this, because if you try to step beyond that, then at this point you're going against the creation. You're going against the reality. You're going against the core reality that we have all agreed to on a soul level. And at that point, you will be humbled. And something will happen, or something will be created that will humble you, or will give you an opportunity to remember your place in creation. And the problem with that is that some people take the hint, or some people allow themselves to be humbled, and then they find their place in all of it, and then they remember that God is at the wheel of all of it. And I say God, source, universe, you can call it whatever you want. If you still continue to persist as if, no, that was just one blip or one issue or one mistake, I'm going to keep doing it my way, then what's going to start to happen is you're going to start to create a domino effect, in that every single one of those things that you effed up on, at some point they're all going to link up, because you're going to start to have you remember what they say, like when God is talking to you, or the universe is talking to you, first it throws a stone at you, and then it'll throw a pebble or a rock, and then it'll throw a brick, and then if you're not careful, a freaking wall is going to come tumbling down on you. That's what happens. And so that's why you have to be aware, and you have to know your place. And if you don't remember your place in all of this, and you don't honor the creation or honor the rest of source in form and all, then at that point you're going to have a brick wall fall on you at some point. So that's what tends to happen, and it happens at some point. And so we already are seeing the brick walls falling on folks because of their chosen belief system that has gone against the core creation or the core reality. And so now you have brick walls falling on people left and right, because they're suddenly starting to realize that they infringed they infringed in God's plan and God's creation. They are infringing in a jurisdiction of reality that they don't have the right to. And so they're going to get a humbling experience. They can take it and use it, or they can keep fighting back on it. And as the more they fight back on it, the more they're going to build those dominoes that are going to at some point come crashing down on them in a much more obvious way, where there's no way out of it. So that's why you have to know your place. You have to know your place. So even though I have these abilities, and I've demonstrated these abilities, I've had experiences, there are things that are very magical that happen in my life that I share as often as I can, so people know that this stuff is real. At the same time, I have to know my place in creation, because if I start to let that go to my head, and I start thinking that I'm God and I'm over everybody and I control everybody, or I want to, at that point I lose my connection with the core reality, and I begin to embrace a sub-reality that is not sustainable in this form and on this level, and I'm going to get a slapback or a humbling experience. So I have to. And the reason why I know this is because it's happened already several times, because I've learned this lesson the hard way. When I've let something go to my head, or I've let something turn me into this monster of a person through whatever, and this has been throughout my life, not like just now, but throughout my life, I've always had a humbling reminder of God, like, hey, know your place, you're infringing on my jurisdiction, step back and know your place and assume that position well, and that's it. That's all I'm asking you for. And so I have to remember, oh, okay, this is who I am in this is what I am in this. I need to kind of let myself be. And if I'm going to have more, or am I going to experience more, it has to come through source. I can't go and take it, because that's not going to be the way I want to do it. I can't take it from someone else. It has to just be given or granted or offered. And so that's how I will accept it. So just some examples of that, because people may not understand some of that in that way, and why some things happen to some people and they just seem to like be invincible, but they're not, because there are karma's a bitch. Karma's a big bitch who is not going to settle for hors d'oeuvres. She's going to get a full meal, and you better hope you ain't that meal. Let's put it that way. I would like to share he was talking about that. So let me go to the next page. What can you do right now to begin to turn your life around? The very first thing is to start making a list of things to be grateful for. I don't agree with that, because gratitude is great. Gratitude is important. Being grateful for what you have is important, but it's hard to be grateful for things when you are so unhappy or you're in so much pain or you're suffering so much. So being grateful for anything is going to be a struggle. What I would recommend to be able to do the same process and being able to express gratitude is to, instead of making a list of all the things you're grateful for, I tried this like in the beginning of doing all this work. I made lists every day and I was trying to be grateful for something every single day, and I was so tired of it and I was so bored with it and I just felt nothing. You have to have an emotional resonance. You have to have a response energetically to these types of situations. Just because if you're not connected or there isn't anything that's connecting you to it, then it isn't going to mean anything and you won't achieve your goals. You won't be able to achieve anything to change. So what I would recommend is to just feel better. Don't spend a day making a list of all the things you're grateful for and then the next day do the same thing, because that really isn't achieving anything. What I would recommend is just feeling better. So if you feel like crap, what is causing you to feel like crap? Well, my boyfriend's causing me to feel like crap. Okay, well then plan a day away from your boyfriend, or plan a day to go and do an activity that only you need to do or you want to do that you would enjoy with friends, by yourself, whatever. And that way you can have an enjoyable experience regardless of who you're with. But you need to basically plan in or bring in elements so that you can start to feel better. Oh, well, my knee hurts. So my knee has been bothering me and it hurts and it's just causing me to be cranky. Okay, is there anything you can do to alleviate some of that tension? Well, if I elevate my foot, then I feel a little bit better. Okay, elevate your foot and then watch something funny or watch a movie or watch a show or something that feels better, because that's gonna help to shift you a little bit. Or go and get some CBD ointment and put it on your knee. It works, by the way, y'all. It works. So I did it with my cousin. She was like, whoa, this is like a miracle thing. I'm like, yeah, I was been trying to tell you that, but you can get some CBD ointment and put that on your knee and then see if that makes it a little bit better. Is there a pain medication that you can take that is going to make you stupid? Some people, they'll go and take pain medication and then they'll go and be all stupid, or they become a substance abuse user, or they abuse the drugs. So don't do that. But if there's anything you can do to alleviate it a little bit, just to give you a sense of like, okay, it feels a little bit better. This is tolerable. This is something I can deal with. Okay, cool. And then find something to do or distract yourself with something else. That's going to make you feel better. So anything that you can reach for, any activity, any mental activity, any emotional activity, any physical activity and action that you can take to feel better is what you need to do, because once you feel better, you will feel grateful. You can feel grateful. It's easier to feel grateful for the things you have. I cannot tell you how grateful I am for just the little things in my life, just because I have such a great deal. I have such a sweet life. And so for me, it's easier to care and to be grateful for the little things. But you have to be realistic, be practical, deal with the shit that you don't want to deal with, that you need to deal with, so that you can start to just have that put to the side for a moment while you can reach for something that feels better. And then that's the way and that's the route that'll get you there. Okay? Well, we'll stop there because I want to get into some of these questions and I'm running out of time here. So let me go to some of these questions here. And again, the question has to pertain to the book or to spiritual topical things. The reads tonight were fire. Thank you, Mama. I appreciate that. Yeah, I was. I think you were watching the thing with Shannon. The thing with Shannon where I was saying like I feel, and I was telling my best friend this. I was like, I feel like in the last 2 or 3 months, it's like I'm having to learn how to use my abilities again, because something shifted where what I'm used to feeling, the sensations, the connection, how it feels to me, something felt different, and it almost felt as if there was no connection, even though it was still there, because I was like, well, I have to still do this, so I have to show up and do it and hope that it's still gonna work. And it did, but it just felt differently, and I wasn't used to that. And so what I did last night, which is what I told y'all to do, is don't assume that there is no connection. Always assume there is a connection, but just push through it and do the best that you can, and then it'll start to resettle. And that's what I've had to do. I've had to basically get used to operating on a different radio signal or frequency with them, so that I can realign and get back into what I'm used to. And now I'm getting it back again, or it's coming back into sync the way I'm used to, which is now I'm having to have similar feelings come up again, or similar things come up again. But it's because I made the switch. I made the shift. So So that's why that is. So that's what I would recommend. But thank you for that. I appreciate that, because I'm used to that, and whenever I don't do that, I get harder on myself, and then I'm like, what is going on? What's happening? And I start to like go through this whole tailspin of like trying to figure things out. But yes, you have to put in actionable steps. If you desire some things and you sit on your ass waiting for it to show up, don't expect it to come, because you're basically telling God, I'm too lazy and I want to be spoiled and I don't want to do anything, even though I spent all my life and all these years making this be the reality for me and making this the norm. I don't really want to fix it. So can you just like, I'm going to be positive and have positive thoughts and wish and desire and be grateful with the list and just make it show up for me. No, sorry, you don't get that. You have to put your hard ass working boots on and do something about it, and that way you can show the universe that you're serious, because it needs to take its cue from you. Oh yeah, the book is The Secret. Here we go. The book is The Secret. It's a really good book. It's a good starter book, and I'll put starter because a lot of people who have read this book or watched the film, which I would recommend watching the film because you can get through it within a couple of hours. And that's how I did it, is I just did the film and then I went back and bought the book because there was a little bit extra stuff in the book. But it's still, the film itself is like very inspirational. But The Secret. But it's a good starter. So when you think of changing your life, manifesting a better future, transforming, reaching for happiness, The Secret is like kindergarten on that scale of effort. So if you think you can watch The Secret and you're ready to do trigonometry or algebra or geometry, no, because you're just in pre-K, or kindergarten. So you need to let it sit, absorb it, kind of sit with it, try to understand the mechanisms, and then start to practice or try to and then there's other books that take you to the next level. But this is a good starting point. So you ain't gonna like this answer, girl. I'm gonna tell you right now. So I cram. What do you recommend for drawing a particular person to you in a romantic way? So I got some things to say about this, and you're not gonna like it. So prepare yourself, okay? First of all, if you have to chase someone and they ain't coming to you, and you got to chase them, or you got to create some magic to draw them to you, that says more about you, which means you are settling. You're not expecting the universe to send you something good. You believe you don't deserve anything, or you don't deserve something good, and this is something you're settling for. That's what that means. And if that's what's happening, and if that's what's going on, or is the root of your emotional state, guess what? That's going to apply to every single thing in your life. So if you are obsessed with someone because you think they have value and worth, and they're going to solve all your problems because they care about you or they're in a relationship with you, get the fuck over it, because that is not the one. And if they were the one, you would know it, because you wouldn't be able to get rid of that person. They'd be popping up left and right. You'd be washing the dishes. Oh, here we are. You'd be trying to take a poo. Hey, you gonna spend time with me? You can't get rid of them. So if they're the one, then and I don't even like using the word the one, but if they are the one you need to be in a relationship with, then you're not gonna be able to get rid of them. It's gonna just work, or it's gonna be doable. If they are away from you and you are trying to energetically transform the universe to bring this person to you, I'm not saying you can't, I'm saying you shouldn't, because that is basically you getting comfortable with the idea that you don't deserve to have someone who desires you or wants to choose you. And so you're trying to take someone else's choices away. And guess what? When you get into a relationship with this person that you forced into a relationship with you, guess what? They're going to have choices and decisions that you're not going to agree with. They're going to make you feel like crap because they're going to resent you. They're not going to want to be with you, or they're going to be bouncing around with other people. So it's not a good idea. And I know this from experience because I went through this myself. So I would recommend that instead of you trying to attract a specific person to you because you can't see the potential of someone else in this reality, in this world, from the billions of people on this planet who could potentially find themselves attracted to you, because you cannot perceive that potential reality, because every single human being on this planet can connect with thousands upon thousands of people who are potential mates. If you can't see that reality, you're telling the universe that there's limited options, you don't deserve the best, you don't deserve someone who even desires you, and you're settling. And that is not a good recipe for a good relationship, a healthy relationship, or a happy relationship. So you might want to think about that. Now, with that being said, change that. Because what I would recommend you do is actually focus on the experience you desire. I'm not saying you can't have love. I'm not saying you can't have an experience. This person, thank them. Thank them, because if you want them that bad, then what this means is that you had an experience with this person that they exposed you to, that you enjoyed or that you desire. And that is what you need to latch onto. Not the person who brought you the experience, but the actual experience and how it felt inside of you. And so what I would recommend is, instead of trying to draw this individual to you, actually work on drawing the experience that they gave you to you, and focus on the memory of that experience. Take their face out of it. So if you had an emotional relationship with this person, or if you had an incredible sex life with this person, you, in your head and in the memory of this experience with them, just pretend like you wiped away their face, or like take their face and like just make it blank, and give yourself the same experience. Relive it if you have to. Milk those experiences. Think of it as often as you can, and enjoy those memories. Enjoy the memory, and give the universe a chance to bring you someone who can offer you the same experience. But take this person's face, this person's attitude, this person's rejection out of the equation. Because at that point, you are simply surrendering yourself to the experience you had. You're honoring what you were given. You're granting freedom to the person who gave it to you and thanking them for it. And you're asking God or the universe to bring you something that also has similar aspects and more. Don't settle, because you deserve more, unless you don't think you do. And if you don't think you do, then you can keep trying. Okay? My BFF is on the live, so she's watching me go off, and she probably tuned in while I was going off on somebody. I know people are gonna say, you're an asshole, Ferny, or God, you're just so mean. I'm not mean, sweetheart. I'm just trying to snap y'all into reality, because some of y'all are running around with these false sense of realities, or these false sense of happiness. Like, this is gonna make me happy. If I'm just with this person, I will be happy for the rest of my life, and never ever anything is gonna go wrong again. Wrong. Life is reality. Reality is suffering. You're gonna suffer in this life. That is a equation that we all have to go through. No one can live in this life without the experience of suffering. But how much do you want to suffer? Is the suffering self-induced, or is this something that is just part of the process? I personally do not want to suffer any extra in this lifetime than I have to. So I'm just going to focus on creating and producing the best experience for myself possible, drawing the best experiences to myself possible. But when shit happens, I will deal with it. But I ain't going to deal with extra, because this ain't an extra shit pot that I'm collecting here. This is just, I'll deal with it when it's a part of the equation, when it's a part of the experience I need to have here, but I'm not going to do any extra. I ain't doing extra credit in this lifetime with suffering. So the extra credit suffering that a lot of people do is because of the ideas and those beliefs that I won't be happy unless I have this one person in my life, or I won't be happy until I have this one job, or I won't be happy until I have this certain amount of money. No, there is no like permanent happiness in this lifetime. Happiness is a state of mind. It is a practice. It is not a dependent, it's not an experience that you gain from a experience that you have. It is something that you work on, that you have to produce within yourself, that you have to get comfortable with and learn how to do for yourself. Then all these other extra things are just extra, and they're fun and they're enjoyable and they're cherries on the top. But you don't want to base your life on, I want to be happy, so I have to do this one thing, have this one person, or or experience this certain thing. No, most, and this is for everybody. A good life is based on momentary experiences and small moments in your life. A good life. And if you have 1,000 good moments in your day, and then you have one shitty hour in that day, it's going to be a lot easier to rebound and recover and get back on track. But if you have a lot of crappy moments because you are sustaining a state of being through your thoughts and through your bringing up the past, if you are having a bunch of those little moments and then you're trying to get this one big glorious moment to fix the rest of your life, you're doing it backwards and it's not going to work and you're not going to be happy. So you need to write write yourself right now, turn yourself upside down and focus on the little moments, because that's what's going to build a happy life and a better life and a good life. The haunted chair. So like, I don't know. I don't want no goddamn haunted chair. Get the hell, get that shit out of here. I don't want no haunted chair. Which is funny. Speaking of, I have to tell y'all this because it's hysterical. I was like on Nextdoor, and there was a post someone posted that said, "Free Ouija board. It's on the curb. Anybody can come and get it. It's available to anyone who wants it." And I was just like busted laughing. I'm like, do you really think that anyone's gonna want to come and pick up a Ouija board that you put on the curb? Why did you put it on the curb? Why didn't you, what the hell is like, no, I ain't touching that thing. Like, you're crazy, but it's just hysterical. It's funny. It's funny. Yeah. Thank you for that. Yes, Shine by you. Thank you for that. Yeah. Yeah. I've seen the Donald do that always. Yeah. My favorite analogy, pebble, rock, brick, boulders. Very exhausted. Sorry, I'm late. Fell asleep. You're fine, Miss Jenny. You take your time. You take your time. You don't know anyone excuses. You can be exhausted and tired. It's okay. No need to apologize, and no need to explain to people why. It's like sometimes like I'm just tired and exhausted, but I still do what I got to do, or I still live my life. And my partner's like, you okay? What's wrong with you? Because because I have resting bitch face syndrome, and I was like, I'm fine. Leave me alone. Like stop picking on me. Like I'm fine. Like I'm okay with the way I feel. I'm in my mind. I feel like I'm in a good place. Don't make me feel like something, like I'm doing something wrong, or like I'm not okay, because I feel okay. So he's not the one, sweetheart, because if he were the one, he would be there. He's not there. Oh, Miss Jenny, it's a long one, Miss Jenny, by the way. That the thing with Shannon is long. So I actually just turned it into 3 podcasts that I'm going to release over the next 3 weeks as like single episodes, and each one kind of focusing on like a part of the conversation. So that way it's like more digestible, because it was a really long thing. I didn't even do my walk. I was so caught up in it. Girl, you don't need help. You need a reality check, mama. You need a reality check. Yeah. So Ray so are there any books that I can recommend that can help you to get to the next stage? Because again, like I said, the secret is like kindergarten. Yes, there's a book by Bendijo Masato, and it's called Super Accelerated Living. That is like, for me, I thought that was the gold mine of like information to be able to do this. So that's one. Another one is there's an author out there called Genevieve Davis, and she has a few books. They're smaller. She also has audiobooks. I listen to the audiobooks because I like listening to the audiobooks. But Genevieve Davis, and there's one called Get Rich. There's another one called like Be Happy. I don't know. There's a bunch of different books, but she's really good as well. And she gives you examples and things that she experienced along the way. And she also went from working in a factory job to being wealthy and having like a lot of money. So she knows what she's talking about. So that's another one to go with as well. I always like to take advice from people who can tell, who have lived it, or they actually have it to back up. Like, where are your receipts? Oh, here are my receipts. Okay, good. Then you can tell me what you want to tell me. So, all right, guys, I gotta go because I gotta go for my walk and it's getting dark. So I love you all. Yep. So I know there's other questions here, but I gotta go. Yeah, I gotta go. So, all right, guys. So I love you all, and I will see